I'm Samuel Trapp. I've had a rather interesting all the way to midweek, right? I suppose we're here at the very beginning of the old hump day, the old midweek. Let's see. Oh, we have too much news on the screen, too many things going on in the world, especially here in mid-Missouri. We've got some, so we track legislation, does international flavor, as does Civic Outlaws. So Fridays I try to focus on Civic Outlaws, and Civic Outlaws is the program every Friday, but sometimes it kind of bleeds over into the other programs because there's so much stuff going on. I told you a little bit yesterday about some of the success stories we've had with our articles and with the stuff that we're putting out. We have basically three, I suppose, corresponding sorts of activities that are going on. The first, well, I suppose you could say four if you count international flavor here, because international flavor, I talk like I talk. I tell you things the way I believe them to be true. Tell you a little bit about varying perspectives upon the world and the drama that unfolds here, around the planet. And I've been paying attention to it. I'm real interested to see who's lying and who's speaking the truth again, and because they cannot be mutually exclusive. My thought is, so allegedly the Marines are showing up today. They show up that have been traveling from the Japan area, Indonesia, somewhere over there. And it's taken them a while to get to the Straits of Hormuz. Still got the talk that we're taking over the island, Karg Island, and that's going to occur. I think that's a bad problem, a bad idea all around. We have that going on. The 82nd Airborne guys are supposed to show up a little later. They're airborne. They should be there in a 12-hour flight. Take a flight and get over there. You don't need to. But I think I bring all their equipment. I'm giving you a hard time there. Do you know, when I was in the military way back in the dark ages, and we would go to, we'd have these rather large operations, training exercises. And so I was stationed, when I was in tactical units, I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. At the time, we were always told it was the largest military base on the planet. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. I don't know. Really haven't paid any attention. But I know it was freaking huge. And it's like 300 square miles or something. And it's pretty big. And, mini state. Pick a state, Rhode Island or something, Washington, D.C. It's bigger than that, And at any rate, we would transport equipment, and it was an exercise, You'd have to get all your poop in a group and get ready to go and try and get everything loaded. We would do two different versions, okay? First was you would load up train cars in Fort Hood and go across to, if you were going to the National Training Center in Arizona, or Nevada, California, what is the name of that little town there? Little crappy town, Barstow. And it's not a crappy town, just tiny little, nothing there except a military base, or entrance to a military base, training place, and a train yard. And so all of your equipment would show up there. And it was quite the process to get everything there. Same thing. When we went to something, I don't know what they do. They different names. You come up with these great names for your operations that make it sound like you're taking over the planet, right? And Operation Reforger was what we went to every year in Germany. And so Fort Hood, 2nd Armored Division, 3rd Corps, 1st Cav, those three units would either be combined or one at a time going across the planet to get to Germany and do some training. And you'd send over, 10,000 soldiers to Germany or more, and it was quite a logistics feat. So sending over 5,000 Marines from Japan, that's a big deal. And getting all their stuff together, you can understand that it gets there. I mean, that's one of the reasons that leads me to believe that the administration didn't plan appropriately, and they thought these decapitation strikes were just going to be the be-all, end-all, and it was all going to be over, right? And, they're going to capitulate, and that'll be that. And I believe they miscalculated. And then that's why I also believe the 5-day delay isn't a 5-day, I've agreed, I've said I'm going to ceasefire unilaterally. It's it's a planning tactic until you get your guys over there. On the best day, you're not going to get 5,000 troops over relocated in 5 days, in your best activities. You're going to take if you have 5,000 guys in airplanes with rucksacks, that's one thing. But 5,000 guys with all their equipment, armored personnel carriers, BMP-style Bradley fighting vehicles or whatever, that's an operation that takes some time. That's takes some time to put together. And they've got to come from somewhere around the world. And so, at any rate, that is why I believe the way that I do. And I also believe that it was an effort to do two things. And one is lower the price of gas, make sure that a lot of people make a lot of money on the stock options or the futures markets. And to give time to get to that side of the planet. That's what I believe. And everything else is just what they call in the legal parlance puffery. You are allowed to puff a contract. That's only puffing. That is not the term of the contract, Little old lady drove this car and, just back and forth to church every Sunday. That's puffery. That's not a contractual term when you find out that really, she drove at 120 miles a day. Everybody knows that would be just puffery, and so therefore, that doesn't count. Well, that's Trump. He's a puffery god. Everything he says, according to most people, is positioning. He's not telling you the truth. He's puffing the terms of whatever deal he hopes to make out, and he's just trying to get a reaction. That's called negotiation. And, or if you're in the, put it into police work, that is good police work, right? Good police work includes a hell of a lot of lying, because the police can lie to you all day long to get you talking. That's good police work. But God forbid you lie back. They come in and say, oh, yeah, I got a truckload of drugs coming in on this day, and we're going to figure something out. And you go, yeah, I got one coming in too. If we're going to talk about who's got what going on, I got some too. Well, and if it turns out you're lying, you go to jail for lying to a cop. But the cop, that's good police work. That's what he's supposed to do, right? Is get you to talk. And so that's Trump and the police are of an equal caliber in this regard. Not telling the truth about what's going on in Strait of Hormuz. So allegedly, as I indicated yesterday, now there are complete more stories about it. Iran allowing non-hostile ships through the straits. U.S. and Israeli vessels, as well as those that support the aggressors, are not welcome. So, despite that message, and they have to be coordinated. Middle East tensions don't show any sign of abatement, as they call it, and the Pentagon has issued orders for 2,000 82nd Airborne troops to deploy to within striking distance from Iran, as well as 2,500 Marines from that are supposed to arrive later this week. I had heard something this morning that they're showing up today. And Trump says that Iran has made major concessions now. I don't know what to believe, not at all. And senior Iranian advisor Ali Ahmadian dared U.S. soldiers to come closer. Said that Iranian armed forces have trained in asymmetrical warfare for decades. U.S. President Trump is seeking an off-ramp from the war with a list of 15 peace proposals. Here's the latest developments. Trump claimed the U.S. has already won, and he has ongoing diplomatic talks with Iran, and he postponed these military strikes, which we told you about yesterday, for 5 days. Israeli Channel 12 reports that Trump's 15-point proposal demands that Israel dismantle its nuclear and missile programs and abandon any regional proxy network. Yeah, that's gonna happen. And open up the Strait of Hormuz to unrestricted maritime passage. Or, hell, maybe the U.S. could take it over and charge. If the U.S. took it over, damn well they'd charge Iran to get through the Straits of Hormuz. And in exchange, Tehran receives a full lifting of international sanctions, assistance with its civilian nuclear program, and removal of the snapback sanction mechanism. Okay? Now, those are big gives if they're actually going to give that up. I wouldn't trust them. They've been saying, similar crap for several years now. And nothing couldn't be further from the truth. Pete Hegseth says, we negotiate with bombs. That's right. We're going to send over the varsity team here any day that we're going to negotiate with bombs. And Tehran denies that talks with the U.S. are even taking place. And Iran's parliamentary speaker says that such claims are fake news and are being used to manipulate financial and oil markets. Must be listening to what I'm saying. Oil prices fell 5% on Wednesday. Okay. So we still have it. A reporter by the name of Marina Kosarevia has looked into Israeli tactics regarding decapitation strikes, which critics say disregard civilian losses and lead to families being wiped out. And apparently she came to the same conclusion I did. That's why I'm sharing. The more they kill and the more they kill families, the more people want revenge. And so the circle between Iran and Israel just continues to get further. Iran has set a high bar for entering peace talks, says the Wall Street Journal. According to newspaper sources, Tehran's primary demands include closure of all military bases, American, in the Persian Gulf. And that's been the same statement for the last couple of weeks, at least. New rules for shipping through Hormuz that would allow the Iranian authorities to collect payments from vessels. The lifting of sanctions against Iran. Guarantees from Washington that it won't resume military action. Why would anybody believe that? That's flat out lie. You say that. They cessation of talks on Israel against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Exclusion of the issue of Iranian ballistic missile program from the agenda of future negotiations. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calls the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran an absolute disaster. and it was launched to feed the interests of the usual suspects. And all for what, he says? To undermine international law, destabilize the Middle East, reignite conflict with Iraq and Lebanon, and bury Gaza under the rubble of oblivion and indifference, is what he told his parliament. The conflict is an absurd and illegal war, a cruel one that sets us back from achieving our economic, social, environmental goals, said the prime minister. Sanchez suggested that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu seeks to inflict the same level of damage and destruction in Lebanon as the IDF did on Gaza during the conflict with Hamas. Iranian media released a video of what they call a cruise missile launch aimed at the Abraham Lincoln. The U.S. has not reported any damage. Trump claimed that Tehran had launched 100 missiles at the Abraham Lincoln, but that every single one of them was knocked down. Iranian authorities have claimed to have arrested 39 mercenaries working for terrorist groups and the Zionist regime, saying that they confiscated 49 homemade bombs, 2 Kalashnikov guns, as well as other weaponry and ammunition. Russia is sending a delivery of humanitarian assistance to Iran. 300 tons of medical supplies. Emergency ministry has announced, saying that it will be transferred via Azerbaijan. Pirhosin Kulivand, head of Iran's Red Crescent Society, confirms these plans, said that several other countries like China, Tajikistan, and Azerbaijan are also stepping up. Speaker of Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has said that Tehran is watching redeployment of troops closely from the U.S., warning that what generals break, soldiers can't fix. What generals have already broken, that soldiers on the ground aren't going to be able to fix, and say that they will also fall victim to Netanyahu's delusions. The U.S. and Israel have plans for another 2 to 3 week war against Tehran, even if talks with Tehran take place, says Axios. Turkey is passing messages between the U.S. and Iran. Israel Electric Corporation has dismissed earlier reports of damage to the country's power grid from Iranian strikes. So, lots of news to keep track of on this lovely Wednesday. Let's see. I'm going to switch to this side of the planet here and tell you a little bit about Hungary no longer delivering gas to Ukraine. So up until about a year and a half ago, August of 2024, when the Ukrainians were getting involved in, going into Belgorod, going into Kursk, the Russian regions right across the border from Ukraine. Before that time, there were rather large gas and oil pipelines through the entire country of Ukraine into the Eastern European countries and into Hungary for sure. So they went, the fuel and the oil would go one direction into Europe. And that's how they got cheap, very low cost Russian oil and gas. But it's the reverse now. So electricity, other forms of energy supply come back through Druzhba and through, come up south. I forget the name of the other one, Turk Stream. And they come around through Greece and then up into Hungary and region, Serbia, that area, and then or around through Moldova and back into Ukraine. So Ukraine is getting supplies that way. Hungary is saying that now they're going to halt natural gas deliveries to Ukraine until Kiev restores the flow of Russian oil through the Druzhba pipeline. In a video posted to his Facebook page Wednesday, Orban said that Ukraine has been blocking the operation of the oil pipeline for 30 days. And as long as Ukraine does not provide oil to Hungary, it will not receive gas from Hungary. Orban states that gas that would have been sent to Ukraine will instead be stored in Hungary, and says the move is necessary considering that Ukraine is also attacking the southern gas pipelines that supply Hungary, referring to Turkstream that brings Russian gas to Hungary via Turkey and the Balkans. We will defend Hungary's energy security, the protected petrol price, and the reduced gas prices, Orban declared. He said the country has so far been able to successfully defend against Ukrainian blackmail, thanks to the protected price scheme that Hungarians pay the lowest price at gas stations in all of Europe. Let's see. Orban's announcement come amid, it's a long-running dispute. It's been going on for a couple of months now, between Budapest and Kiev, because Ukraine halted oil shipments through Druzhba in January and said that supposedly the lines were damaged by the Russians. It's always the Russians that have done it. Moscow denies the accusation, and Hungary and Slovakia, who are reliant on the pipeline, also doubt Kiev's excuses. They're trying to wait until after the elections so that Orban hopefully gets thrown out. You get somebody far more pro-Ukraine and pro-EU instead of Orban, who is not pro-Ukraine by any stretch. Peter Zajarto, foreign minister of Hungary, says that the satellite imagery says that a fully operational pipeline does exist, and that Kiev is refusing to allow a joint inspection, which proves the decision is only political. And Budapest is also retaliating by vetoing the $90 billion that Ukraine was supposed to get in the form of a alleged loan, which they never have to repay. And they blocked a new round of sanctions against Russia. What is it, the 22nd wave of package of sanctions, right? And they oppose Kiev's EU membership. And Orban said that Budapest is not going to back down unless and until the pipeline starts back up. So, same old problem. You could fast forward a month and you'd still have the same incidents, right? Tell you what, I am going to take a small break here, and in the meantime, I believe we're going to listen to some jazz. Let's see, and I'll be back with you in just a minute.
Moonlight spills on quiet shoes. Every step removes the blues. I follow shadows loose and free, letting rhythm carry me. Gravity loosens, worries move, body speaking, subtle groove, moonlit groove, smooth and wide, pulls the dark in gentle tide, not too bright, never shy, just the night, learning why. I danced alone through crowded bars, never felt the beat of stars. Your timing lands like a loop, got emotion, calming heart. The skylines close, the floor agrees. Every movement finds its ease. Moonlit groove, slow ignition, turning silence into mission. No command, no demand, just the sway we understand. If clouds erase the silver hue, the rhythm still will pull us through. Brushes whisper, feet align, time drifts off, out of line. Moonlit groove, deep and true. Every step returns to you, held between the dark and blue. Forever moving, moonlit groove. Bass fades low, night exhales, stars retreat behind the
And I return. Sorry for that little break there. Had to go and take care of something in the office. Let us see. I wanted to share with you, I couldn't find the story yesterday. And there's a couple of, one of them I find to be a little bit amusing. That, again, still about Ukraine, right? Ukrainskaya Pravda newspaper in Ukraine. Let's see. Washington, they say that Washington is offering Kiev economic benefits and security exchanges in exchange for a full withdrawal from whatever's remaining of the Ukrainian occupied Donbass region, which is mostly Donetsk, Lugansk. Donetsk is basically 98% Russian occupied right now. And Lugansk is about 85, 90, and Russia's still pushing. There's been a little bit of counterattacks going on in the last couple of months. And so, allegedly, according to Ukrainskaya Pravda, the U.S. is trying to convince Ukraine to withdraw from the Donbass and reach peace with Moscow while promising Kiev security guarantees and sweeping economic benefits in return. Now, you aren't hearing anything but Iran in the United States, right? This is reported on Tuesday, and Kiev has refused the offer so far. And Ukrainian officials, probably trying to, line their own pockets first, are trying to divert U.S. attention away from this issue, even as Washington is allegedly running out of patience. Several Russian officials told the newspaper that the issue of Donbass, which joined the Russian Republic in 2022 in referenda but remains partially under Kiev's control, is one of the key obstacles toward peace. Kiev has consistently refused to pull back from what remains of its occupation of part of the region, and Moscow says this is a key prerequisite for peace. The Americans do not see how we can reach an agreement on the main issue, said an unnamed Ukrainian official, saying that the U.S. would eventually decide to walk out of the settlement talks to focus on Iran and its own domestic agenda. And officials noted that the U.S. is even ready to offer real security guarantees if we withdraw from Donbass. Second source says that U.S.-Ukraine talks feel like there are three sides present at the meeting, and Ukraine has to constantly argue with the Americans over the Anchorage framework reached during Putin and Trump Alaska summit last summer. Leave the Donbass, we'll build you a paradise, as agreed in Alaska, said a source describing the U.S. stance. With U.S. pressure mounting, Ukrainian officials are spending a lot of time trying to divert Americans from the idea of withdrawal and instead toward the creation of some economic zone or something else. But at some point, everything is thrown aside and we again hear, you just have to leave from the Americans. And so it goes in circles. Zelensky acknowledged U.S. pressure last month and insists that Kyiv is not losing the war, even while it loses the war. The latest round of U.S.-Ukraine talks took place last weekend, and Ukrainian officials said they were focusing on security guarantees and prisoner exchanges. Well, okay, you're not getting any security guarantees till you leave the Donbass, and you exchange your 1,000 to 2526, and this is what happens every death exchange and prisoner exchange is like 100, 10 to 15 to 1 amount in favor of those being given away by the Ukrainians, because the Russians have far fewer dead bodies, and the Ukrainians have far fewer Russian soldiers. So the Russians aren't seeking the return of dead bodies, and Ukraine doesn't have them, but Russia has collected thousands of Ukrainian bodies from the battlefield. So the latest round of U.S.-Ukrainian talks took place last weekend. However, trilateral talks involving Russia are on ice amid the Iran war, says Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman from the Kremlin. And they're on situational pause for obvious reasons, he says, and will resume once schedules align with those of American negotiators. So that was entertaining. I wanted to point out to you another interesting story. Where is it? I told you a little bit about it yesterday, but I was able to find the article. So Musk and Starlink have been criticized all over Africa and criticized all over Russia and countries in that area for they are basically, according to them, from that area of the world, they're just an arm of the Pentagon. And Musk is allowed to make billions off of the Pentagon, and the Pentagon doesn't have to worry about it, and then they provide Starlink for free to Ukraine. Allegedly, when the war first started over there, Starlink couldn't be used for strikes into Russia, but that has been not discussed recently. The belief is that it's been some time that the Pentagon and Musk have been supplying free Starlink access to Ukraine. Well, Russia, as of yesterday, published yesterday with full video, Russian private space company has successfully placed into orbit the first 16 satellites of their planned broadband internet network intended as the domestic alternative to Starlink. On Tuesday, the developer Bureau 1440 released footage showing Rassvet, which means dawn, satellites separating from their launch rockets. According to the company, all units are functioning properly and will maneuver into their assigned orbits after completing system checks. Bureau 1440 carried out test launches last year, and deployed the initial 3 of each prototype satellites twice last year. The company says technology is since fully developed. First phase of the project has more than 250 satellites to be sent into orbit, equipped with laser transponders for in-orbit communications by mid to late 2027, and plans to expand the constellation to around 900 satellites total by 2035. Starlink, which began commercial service in 2020, is viewed very skeptically by Russia. Mm-hmm. And they describe it as the Pentagon communications system. So that's what they call it. So this is a Russian satellite internet project launched in 2020, initially funded by mobile phone operator Megaphone, before being transferred to X Holding, a major domestic IT group. Bureau 1440 gets government support, relies on launch services from the Russian National Space Agency Roscosmos. And so during its demonstrations in the last couple of years, Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Chernyshenko showcased technology by conducting video calls with officials located on Mount Ficht, a remote site 1,300 kilometers away. Company's main goal is to expand connectivity in remote regions with underdeveloped ground infrastructure, and they wish to ensure internet access for long-distance transport for trains and aircraft. On the similar topic, where is that? Darn it, what have I done? The U.S. is now accused of smuggling Starlink into Iran amid the riots. So, administration of President Trump covertly smuggled around 6,000 satellite terminals into Iran earlier this year, says the Wall Street Journal. And they substantiate Tehran's claim of foreign interference in the riots that occurred earlier. The operation, which senior officials say involved State Department funding, of course, comes after Iranian authorities imposed a sweeping internet blackout in January. Trump was aware of the deliveries, officials told the Wall Street Journal, although it remains unclear whether he personally approved the plan. Iranian officials accuse Washington and Tel Aviv of fueling unrest. Blah, 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 blah. At the height of the unrest, Trump encourages the peaceful Iranian protesters to posts on Truth Social. Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your public institutions if possible. He also promised that help is on the way, and he's going to deploy a beautiful armada to the region. And, geez, how exciting for them back in January, wasn't it? And look where we are now. Oh, my God. 2 pilots killed in a LaGuardia airport runway collision. Shows an Air Canada plane. Can't see the other one. But so LaGuardia, 2 pilots killed. That's no good. Crashing 2 planes. Crazy sauce. So sticking with the internet for a little bit. On Musk, the Starlink has been blocked from operating in Namibia. Namibia is refusing to grant Starlink a license amid mounting pushback against the U.S. satellite internet provider. Communication Regulatory Authority of Namibia announced the move Monday, said it had rejected the company's application for service. The authority resolved to decline the award of Class Comprehensiveness Telecommunications Service license for Starlink The regulator did not provide a detailed reason for the move, but noted that Starlink's Namibian subsidiary lacks local ownership and added the decision was taken in accordance with applicable licensing regulations. The regulator said it could reconsider its decision on its own or on a petition filed by an aggrieved party within 90 days. The bid faces hurdles over Namibia's local ownership law, which typically requires 51% majority domestic shareholding, with Starlink seeking an exemption as a wholly owned foreign company. Nobody gets to own anything if you're in Namibia. Russia starts blah, 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 blah. Sorry, wrong line. In 2024, Starlink was issued a cease and desist and instructed to halt all operation in the country. They warned the public against using Starlink equipment or subscribing to its services, saying that such use is illegal under Namibian law. So the old Musk has been breaking the law. Cameron, let's see, Cameroon, took action against a company in 2024, banning the import of Starlink kits, suspending services, seizing satellite internet equipment over licensing violations. South Africa, Musk's country of birth, hasn't approved the services also, amid dispute over black ownership law that require telecom license holders to have at least 30% local ownership by historically disadvantaged groups, as well as broad regulatory commissions. Starlink has not yet commented. Yeah. Let's see. We're going to head back to Ukraine here because it's so interesting. Yes. Claims of reclaimed territory prove hollow as Russians consolidate their positions from Sumy to Zaporizhia. And Russian army has considerably reduced its combat activity this spring, as is usual this time of year. Typically, at the end of winter and in early spring, Russian forces take time to prepare for a new military campaign. But just like last year, the offensives do not come to a complete stop. They just slow down a little bit. In Sumy, the expanding buffer zone is there. Remember, Trump up in Sumy, it's on the northern side, between Belgorod and Sumy area of Ukraine. So the Russians are trying to get in there and take a 20, 30 kilometer wide border position all the way across the northern parts of Sumy. Let's see. At the end of last year, the northern group of forces opened a new front in Sumy, and they have made reasonably good progress in that side on the way toward the state, or the city of Sumy, which is capital of the territory of Sumy, the region. And in Seversk, which was captured on December 11, is an important but intermediate stop on the key area of the Donbass, the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk urban conglomeration. And that's a pretty big conglomeration. The southern group of forces needs to cover a 25 to 30 kilometer stretch to reach Slavyansk and Kramatorsk and overcome a significant elevation along the way. Where else are they going? If you watch the supply lines, it's the same old. They cut off access to railway. They cut off access to major roadways. They encircle particular cities and then end up taking it over. And that is the way that it goes. So that's kind of the catch up. And we may come back to it, see if there's anything else on world news that I wanted to talk about. The Bangladesh jet fuel prices are up 80%. 80%. So, and just in the last in the last week. Let's see if we can find this. Bangladesh has an 80% hike in jet fuel prices. The second upward revision in March, says the national regulator. The Bangladeshi Regulatory Commission said that we had to adjust jet fuel price for the second time this month because the international fuel prices just keep going up. Jet fuel has been set at $1.32 per liter. That's over $5 a gallon for international flights. The revised rates apply to local and foreign carriers. Pricing tiers may vary depending on, how much you buy, operational category, that type of stuff. And that remember me telling you yesterday about the Bangladeshis really having trouble. And they quite a few countries, Pakistan also canceling crowds at sporting events. Can't do it. And so that's not permitted. Let's see. Other South Asian nations have also been there. Pakistan has kept petrol and high-speed diesel prices unchanged, but jet fuel and kerosene have been seriously increased. India and Nepal are experiencing problems, like I told you, on cooking oil and stuff like that yesterday. Okay, well, all that as the backdrop, I really do hope that cooler heads prevail and war gets somehow discussed and minimized. So far, it's not happening, and we shall see what shall be seen. But this, I see personally a much longer war footing. I don't see this as going away anytime soon. We still got all our cheerleaders out there pushing for more. And, the same old standard folks are being the cheerleaders here, right? I wanted to switch and talk about, I was reading, so I get kind of an intelligence report, an update, basically daily. And I get, I try to get an international one, a national focused one, and then I get a Missouri, looking at what's going on in Missouri. And I told you yesterday a little bit about my discussion with, I was very encouraged, had a good conversation with Representative Cook, who I basically thought from my article that I shared last Friday, when I'm going to talk in more detail about this Friday, thought that he was being played, okay? Or not being told everything. When the sunshine documents that I've picked up and that I've received in response to what they have been doing from the ATC side are telling. They're very telling that ATC, after a hearing in December, immediately started pushing for arrest authority and inside of the through the legislature, right? So they're trying to get these things pushed through the legislature. And I told you a little bit in that report about how they're trying to mirror some language that come about through cannabis legislation, if you remember me talking about that. And so a Missouri appeals court recently ordered regulators. I told you about how many licenses, 120-ish licenses that were issued for various types of cannabis. And of those, 37 of them had already been revoked. And so they're looking to put more impact on this. And some of the changes that were part of 3154 House Bill and House Bill 2378, which both have been withdrawn, at least as far as they, according to Representative Cook anyway, he says that those two are dead further this year. They're not going to go on and they'll have to revisit it. But he told me they were pulled. That's what he said. And he called me. I offered to speak with him, have him, on the program, something like that. And he said that, when he contacted me, sent me an email, contacted me. I sent him my cell phone number. He called me. And he says that 3154 and 2378, at least the ATC portions thereof, are dead. And has to do with the efforts, and the discussions that we've taken. We've sent out several different articles to each and every member of the House. I've written 6 by now, and you can find those out at civicoutlaws.com, and you can go out and have a look at these articles. And for me, what was important, at least in last Fridays, and if you really want a kind of a tell-all about what really happened, just go back to last Friday's program and listen to the story about the hearing that took place in Cole County on December 3rd, and then the immediate activities of the state regulatory agency to create for themselves arrest power. We had talked before about how they claim they're a police department. They deny it, but then all their investigation reports are there. They have licensing agents going undercover. And what in the hell is that? Since when is a licensing regulatory agency authorized to go undercover to investigate a liquor license? Undercover. Now, I'll be doing a complete investigation and report into that. Who says they can do it? And analyze the law regarding it. And we could have a discussion about that. But the initial thought is, what in the world kind of nutty world do you have to live in where a licensing agent who isn't even a police officer, but they're post-certified, I can't figure out just a couple of things. Why aren't we going undercover in licensing agents going undercover? Why aren't they going undercover license agents at a doctor's office or chiropractor's office, right? Why don't we do that? Have them go undercover. If you're going to go undercover, get a police department to do it. And alcohol, tobacco aren't police. They aren't authorized to. They're post-certified. They carry weapons, which is stupid and foolish. I don't understand why that's occurring. That makes no sense at all. You have to do that. You have to carry a weapon. And then the guys go undercover. Oh, I'm going to leave my weapon and my badge out in the car, and I'm going to go in and investigate. Great. You're going to go. How about you? A pharmacy has to have a license, right? You can't just go be a pharmacist. Well, why aren't we going undercover at the pharmacy? And if you did go undercover, you'd either have to have an approved activity or a warrant. Not so if you're investigating on behalf of alcohol, tobacco control. Those guys, we don't need no stinking badges. We will leave them out leave them in the car, and we'll leave some backup people out there in case they got to rush in and take a license down, or they got to rush in and I don't know what. See how much alcohol content is in the bottle of wine hanging over there. Whole thing's I hate to be too facetious and joking about it, but it's nuts. It's crazy. Let's see. I am looking at some pretty cool stuff. This is awesome. I just got a text on some of the. There's some people. I'm just going to say yes to this. Sorry, I never. This is one of the reasons I never read my text messages. But one of the things I want to read to you or tell you about is it's on my phone, and I can't pull it up on there. So now I've gotten text messages that are showing up out there. And I didn't sleep last night again, just in case you're wondering, because of the I don't know. I never sleep, but I had a dog again in the house. He's a friend. He is a friendly dog that's hanging out with me in the evenings, and I heard him yipping in the other room whilst one point at night there. Doesn't like sitting in there. You got to get up in the middle of the night and take him out. And when I wake up middle of the night, sleep does not reoccur for quite some time, which is highly frustrating. I also, and I'm kind of all over the map again. Next week, I'm off to Kentucky. Going to see some horse races. We're going to go out and do some tourism in Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is a very beautiful state. Plenty to see and do there, and we're going to go to bluegrass steaks, I think it's called, and take some horse tours, stuff like that. So next Thursday, unless I happen to record one early, there will not be a program. And Friday, I do still plan on doing or pre-recording for next Friday. We're talking about now a Civic Outlaws, but that one will be pre-recorded. Okay, but I want to go have a look at a Missouri Court of Appeals decision that has ordered regulators to issue licenses to 13 facility license to Hippos LLC after a finding that the 2019 scoring process was inconsistent and performed by graders whose qualifications were never established. This ruling implicates potentially hundreds of decisions in nearly 850 pending appeals, a systemic integrity crisis for the Division of Cannabis Regulation. Now, I've told you before on this channel that I am not a smoker. I have never, engaged in drug use. I'm just not one of those. I don't support it. I don't give a crap if other people do, but leave me out of it, okay? And I don't want anything to do with it, but I don't care. I'm trying to get to the actual ruling itself and get a appellate court decision, see what it says. So the court orders Missouri to issue 13 licenses. And they conducted an audit. And so this was a Missouri Western Court of Appeals case that came up. And so we do keep track of this because we're starting an organization called the Missouri License Protection Association. That'll be a 501c6 organization. 501c3, that's our Civic Outlaws operation. 501c6 allows, banding together for kind of a common cause and providing defenses to each other. So we're starting that. And so this decision that just came out 5-6 days ago, says that the Missouri Appeals Court rebuked the state's marijuana licensing process. This is not, unfortunately, the more I look into the more licensing that we go further on here, the worse it gets. It's not just ATC. ATC has made it quite easy, to go after them. I mean, I don't say they're run poorly. I don't really care, but they're taking authority that doesn't belong to them, hasn't been given to them, and they're trying to expand it. I mean, that much is clear. Okay. And now the court has beat up upon the regulatory agency for marijuana. And so the unanimous ruling came after a scathing state audit found flaws, erratic scoring, poor documentation, and a process so opaque that it cast doubt on the integrity of results. Welcome to bureaucracy a la Missouri. The decision, issued last week by the Missouri Court of Appeals Southern District, does more than revive Hippo's long-running challenge over denied cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensary license. It undercuts the methodology the Missouri Administrative Hearing Commission uses to resolve licensing disputes, and raises new questions about hundreds of rulings issued in nearly 850 appeals filed by unsuccessful applicants. So Lisa Cox, who's a spokeswoman for the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, which oversees cannabis, said the agency is developing options in terms of appealing the decision that would go to the Missouri Supreme Court. Hippo's officials, they never got a hold of for comment. When the Missouri Department of Health was working in 2019 to build the framework for the state's now multi-billion-dollar industry, it hired a Nevada-based company, Wise Health Solutions, to score 2,000 applications. But in each of Hippo's applications, there were instances in which identical answers to the same question received inconsistent scores, said Judge Jeffrey Bates. That should never have occurred if Wise's scorers followed the instructions they were given. Neither the department nor Wise did anything to correct the situation, and Hippo's lawsuit challenges the department's denial applications for 2 cultivation, 6 manufacturing, and 5 dispensary licenses. Their first stop for appealing the denied application was the Administrative Hearing Commission, which is where you go after your license gets removed for every license in the state, except for the practice of law. I know, I've spoken on that ridiculous and interesting process for how you get scored as a law license holder, or as it sits out there for 2.5 years before they have to do anything with your application. You can just leave it sit, and that is a typical bureaucratic move. You leave the license sit. You don't have to deny it. You just don't take action on it. And at some point, that's an unreasonable delay, right? So the 3 appellate judges who heard this felt that the commission's approach to rescoring was completely flawed. The raw scores provide no evidence of the scorer's intent because there are no notes explaining why the score was given. So basically, rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, well, I say 4. Next guy goes, okay, well, I see 8. But you don't have to say why, right? Just like the Missouri Bar and the Supreme Court of Missouri when talking about lawyers that apply for a license. You don't have to say why. It's just yes or no. How can you get 9 Supreme? Now these are judges beaten up on the beaten up on the licensing process for cannabis. just to scoring. Here they can't score without giving a reason for the score. But if you're a lawyer seeking a license, the Supreme Court can just say no. But they don't have to say why. Just no. That's it. And that's how the practice of law is determined in Missouri. If you piss off the right people, right? You just don't get a license. That's that. And but you don't get to go, well, wait a minute. Why? Well, because I said no. That's it. And this is what they were doing. And this is the court beaten up on that type of scoring in regulatory agencies. And they write these, raw scores. There are no notes that explain why the score is given. Okay, well, then why can the Supreme Court say, no, you can't have a license, but we don't have to tell you why? Well, we're the Supreme Court. The hell? We know why, but we don't have to tell you, or we don't even know why. There's 9 of us, but we've decided no, but we haven't, or 7 of us, and we haven't figured out why. We haven't figured out which way we're gonna go, depending on the court. At any rate, judges agree with Hippos that the commission decisions affirming the state denial of the company applications were arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. And these decisions are not supported by competent and substantial evidence on the whole record. Now, that's a standard arbitrary, capricious, unreasonable. That's what you have to allege. And you can go sue them for damages on those regards in federal court. Sometimes that's fun. They remanded the case back to the circuit court with the direction that the lower court order the department to grant Hippos the cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensary facility licenses for which they applied. And there was no rebuttal. A major blow to the state's defense, the judges ruled, is that Hippos provided 2 credible witnesses who testified that the application should have received higher scores. And the judges felt that the state didn't even fight back. The experts were cannabis consultants who collectively prepared 83 applications in Missouri. And more than half of their clients' applications successfully received licenses. But the department offered no rebuttal of Hippos' expert testimony and prevented no testimony showing why Hippos should not be given the higher score about which the experts testified. So you don't have to say why. Or they're telling the cannabis regulators that you have to say why, but they won't tell the Supreme Court that. No. Some licenses are more important than others, but we can destroy a person's ability to have a job, as a lawyer, although they've paid for the education of it, without saying yes or no, without saying why. We just say no, and that's okay, but not if you want a cannabis license. Geez, you want a cannabis license? You want to sell cannabis? By God, you better tell them why they can't sell cannabis if you're going to deny them a license. In the department's response to State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick's report that was released last month, auditing the regulation process, it argued the commission did a thorough review of the scoring evidence and heard from many experts during hundreds of appeals. But Cox said the Hippos case was among the first the commission heard in the process of reviewing the department's licensing decisions. The information in the Southern District is seeking, which is expert testimony regarding the department's position, has been provided in all subsequent cases and supports the AHC's determination in Hippo's case, she said in an email. But the department's audit response listed several cases where the commission ruled in favor of the department, and in at least one of the cases, the commission used the same methodology that the appeals court last week determined was flawed. No notes, no evidence. Hippos challenged the scores given on several questions in the application. The court found it difficult to justify scores without seeing any notes on why the grader made them. After the commission concluded that it was required to rescore Hippo's applications due to the noted inconsistency, the commission stated that it was searching for any evidence reflecting the score's subjective evaluation. Obviously, any notes from a scorer about his or her reasons for giving a particular score would be helpful to show consistency. Sounds reasonable to me. Why doesn't the Supreme Court have to do the same? So this is ongoing stories, okay? I wanted to talk about something else because this is something, well, there are several topics, but the first one I want to talk about, because ATC, they have more news. They're getting beat up on, not just by me. Other people are too. So get this. They have this, they have an outdated, what do you call them? The AS400 computer systems. Do you remember those? I used those in the Army 100 years ago. In the early 90s and 2000s. You'd use the AS400. And basically, it's a data entry terminal. And if you go into state offices or anywhere else, you see these old crappy beige crappy plastic colored terminals, right? And in them, they have the green matrix style text across the border. That's an AS400, okay? And the AS400 is still being used by ATC and many other agencies to track your stuff. And it's crap. All it is an old database from 100 years ago. And I can't imagine that it's cheaper to keep AS400 and work on that than to improve and get new data. And our sunshine requests have gone out on this topic of trying to find records, and they cannot manipulate the records. They have to have an AS400 expert, most of which do not exist anymore. Except in state agencies, they got to go find these guys and go train them and send them to ancient schools on AS400 because that's what they use. And industries aren't using that crap anymore. And so ATC has selected Posse ABC as a new enterprise licensing system. So they're starting to require now people to submit their licensing to get an alcohol license or tobacco license through a new system. And they selected Posse ABC from Computronics as a new enterprise software system to replace the outdated platform for managing alcohol licenses and law enforcement data. The fully integrated web-based system will modernize how the division tracks licensees and enforcement actions. Now, why are we focusing on enforcement and not regulation? What in the world? Because enforcement, I've said this for years, law enforcement. Why can't you be a police officer? What's wrong with that? Or a peace officer when you're focused on peace? No. We need to enforce. We got to wear SWAT gear. And we got to drive a tank down the streets. We got to, at least a Bradley. Give us a Bradley fighting vehicle at least. And that could be, better suited for you. And we need to carry weapons to investigate licenses. That's nuts. I made myself a very nice mint tea here, and sorry, it's I'm drinking it up. It's a little bit on the not quite cool side, but certainly not warm any longer. So they have this new licensing database will affect how you can search public record requests and how they're going to be structured and fulfilled, right? They don't have to provide documents in Sunshine and they don't have to create them. They don't have to go out and do it. Now, there's a lot of activities going on in Sunshine enforcement as well. There's some bill tracking that I want to discuss about that on Friday in Civic Outlaws. Let's see. The Show Me ID. There's an enforcement gap in that. Their mobile app that ATC uses, it's discontinued and has been removed from the App Store. So they get out and they say, okay, everybody, you can verify somebody's real ID, but you can't verify it anymore. The developer's contract with ATC expired September 30th of 2025, and the app is no longer reliable for IDs issued after October 2024. And Kristen Templeton, acting state supervisor, said the loss and of this software is a kind of a big deal, and said that ATC is exploring replacement options with state partners, but no timeline, right? This is going to create a real-world enforcement gap, raising questions about how ATC is conducting underage sales checks and tobacco compliance inspections. Have you ever gone into any of these places and they want a copy of your license? I am so offended by this. I'm like 90, okay? I go into some place and I'm going to come in, hobbling in, with my walker, and these guys want to know if I'm over 18, and I got to provide an ID to buy certain things. Nonsense. I mean, all you got to do is take a look at me and know that I am. I don't look under 40, and there's no way. And now you can't use the real ID for anything that it's supposed to, because ATC can't get a new vendor for this, right? Why am I bitching? Maybe because that's what I do. There was another one. Where is this? This I wanted to get to. So a recent state, let's see, no party did that one. Verified dispensary. Okay, here it is. The joint resolution, Missouri Plan, Judicial Selection Reform. Now get this, judicial reform, and I follow this on my own, okay? So HJR 119, get this, proposes removing, I'm for this, absolutely. I am totally against this nonpartisan Missouri Plan BS that they've been pumping, up your rear end for years, saying that it's nonpartisan. My ass, it is not nonpartisan. And so now there's actually an effort to do something about it. HJR 119 proposes removing constitutional mandates for the Missouri Plan, nonpartisan judicial selection is what the bar likes to call it, and returning to voters. Wow, what a concept. The authority to determine whether their circuit uses the Missouri Plan, which is BS, or an alternative method established by law. Yeah. Instead of this ridiculous Missouri Plan that they're trying to codify anyway, or constitutionalize, but they want to get rid of it now. Proponents argue that, and including Samuel, that's me, argue that this will restore democratic accountability to judicial selection processes currently dominated by unelected commissions. If you're unfamiliar with how we pick appellate judges and how we pick many counties, Greene County uses it, St. Louis County uses it. I can't remember. And more counties are going this way to have not citizens pick who gets selected as. So I've explained this before, but it bears repeating. Okay, because it's a BS system, no matter how you slice it. And the way they sell it is they say, "Oh, gee, back in the 30s, there was corruption." In the form of, mafia sort of guys, union bosses, people running, boss so-and-so ran St. Louis, and boss so-and-so, other so-and-so ran Kansas City, and the Supreme Court is located in Jeff City, and that's run by, boss Jeff City, 5 families, same 5 families for generations. run Jeff City and get to pick who gets to be in charge of whatever there. And everybody knows it. You know, it's the smallest state capital in the nation, and it's run similarly. Okay, and so this is how judges get picked. You put people into. And the Missouri bar is deeply involved in this, okay, especially for judicial selection, because get this, the majority of actors, right? Let's say there's for the judicial plan for electing or for appointing a Supreme Court judge. This is BS completely. It goes like this: three people, members of the bar, appointed by the Board of Governors for the bar. So if you kiss the ass of the bar, you have a chance of being picked as a judge at the appellate or the Supreme Court level. But if you don't kiss the ass of the bar, you have zero chance of getting appointed to any of those jobs. And it's gone on for years, okay? Since the 40s. You know, Missouri was the first to create one of these rather interesting plans that gives the authority to the Missouri bar. And they say it doesn't, but get how this works. 3 lawyers appointed by the Missouri bar get to pick candidates. And they get to send out, you know, they get to have people apply. You know, I remember me sending out sunshine requests on this. I'm going to revive all this because I'm going to do it again. Because once I'm finished attacking or going after or doing some research, as it were, with the alcohol tobacco control, I'm going back to the Missouri bar. They didn't even bother to answer. The governor answered. The Supreme Court answered. Missouri bar, not so much. They didn't answer. And I'm sure that the reason they claim they don't have to answer, they didn't even say why they weren't answering. They just didn't answer. And at the time, I was involved in something else, you know, and a couple of things, beginning on the ATC process and doing some other issues. But I'm going to reopen those. They're definitely coming back, and we're gonna hear about those again. And oh, here we go. Hey, pay attention. Mark Levin blows up at Joe Kent. Now, Mark Levin's been pumping war. You know, he's just as bad. He's one of the cheerleaders of war. You want some cheerleaders for war? Levin's one of them. You know, and I like Levin generally. I like listening to him, but don't go claiming he is not a cheerleader for war. He's far more pro-Israel than he is anti-war. Let's just call it like it is. Anyway, I intend to get further into the how the Missouri bar things and the Supreme Court of Missouri and Civic Outlaws is going to take a view into some of that stuff and try to remain calm and reasonable about it. But I'm also right, just like, and you know. If somebody wants to come on and discuss it, I'd be happy to do that too. Just like I keep offering to ATC, I offered it to Representative Cook to see if he wanted to come and chat about some of this stuff. I send emails, say anybody wants to come and talk. You want to talk about some of your reasons behind issues? I'm happy to learn why I'm wrong. Come on in; it'll be fun, and we can talk about it, and you can teach me why I'm wrong. And we can hear, you know, if you say I'm wrong, perhaps you can give your version of correct and tell me why. Any member of the Supreme Court, any member of the Missouri Bar, any, Board of Governors, or any of these idiot committees that they get appointed, you know, like long as you suck up to the right folks. You know, you can get appointed to these committees to pick judges. And how it works is 3 members of the bar picked by the Board of Governors, 3 citizen members picked by the governor get in a room and they figure out who's going to be the candidates that are submitted to the governor, of which he must approve one of the 3. Like, he can't provide his own. he's got to he's got to accept ones that are sent to him. He don't get to pick anybody. Come on. And that's nuts. Why would you get to pick anybody? And why would the voters get any say at all? These 3 citizens are appointed by the governor. Okay. What good does that do to the citizen? The only thing the citizen can do is vote against or vote in a retention cycle during the next election. So you get to stay around for your first term, and perhaps later you get to say, somebody will say, put on the ballot a retention vote, whether or not you're going to be retained. So they have to vote to get rid of you, not vote to elect you in the first place. So you're appointed through some scam process, very lopsided process. And by the way, so you have 6 members. Those are even. Guess where the next member comes from? The court itself. So if the appellate court is looking for somebody, the chief justice or the presiding judge of that court is vote number 7. So you got 4 lawyers, 3 citizens, could be anybody. Who do you think controls the room during the process? Just curious. Who controls the room? Is it one of the lawyers or perhaps the judge? Or is it one of these 3 citizens appointed by the governor who has very little to do with selections by the public? Well, that has come under question even now, in saying that in this House document, what they're trying to say, HJR, what was the number again? We're definitely going to keep an eye on this. I doubt it'll get anywhere because the bar is all powerful, right? I say the most powerful organization in the state of Missouri. And HJR 119, pay attention to that, because it proposes removing the constitutional mandate and returning to voters the authority to determine whether the circuits used a Missouri plan or an alternative method. Now, I haven't read it yet to see whether or not it applies at the appellate levels either. And I hope it does, because the whole system is crap. And perhaps somebody is finally going to pay attention to this ridiculous selection process that has, oh, yeah, it's the way you keep out politics. Oh, yeah, the bar's not politic. A prior appointed judge certainly isn't political. No. Of course not. How can you think that? They're judges. There are no politics among judges. Certainly not in Missouri. Maybe in other states. Maybe at the federal level, but not in Missouri. We'll talk some more about that on Friday. So I appreciate you listening to International Flavor. Today we got a little bit more local in nature because there are a couple of things that came up that I want to talk about and that I'm still keeping an eye on for us. And Friday during Civic Outlaws, new time for Civic Outlaws for the second week in a row. We're going to be 7 a.m. to 8:30 on Civic Outlaws. And you can listen to all those. Go back and listen to all the old shows at civicoutlaws.com/podcast. We've only done 6 of them, and the last 6 are out there talking about issues in the state of Missouri and regulation to follow. I'm Samuel Trapp. Appreciate you being here on this beautiful Wednesday, the biggest day in radio history in mid-Missouri, and I hope you join us every day at damradio.com. All day today we have wonderful talk content for you. You can listen to internationalflavor.com. All the prior episodes of the show are out there for your listening pleasure. Thank you so very much, and have a beautiful day.